This is the Racketware Squash Sensor. It attaches to any racket available on the market, past or present, and 1,000 times a second records information about its position and movement. And when I say its position, what that actually means is your racket's position. It knows the difference between this and this, this and this, and whether you come directly down onto the ball or whether you drop before. This will be able to tell you more about your swing than you ever thought possible. In this introduction to the sensor, I'm going to be talking about some of the features that it has available and how it can benefit you. Now, Racketware, as I see it, has two challenges over the next few years. Number one, convincing people to buy this. Number two, and I think much more importantly, presenting the information in useful and meaningful ways. If they accomplish the second goal, they will accomplish the first goal. As I mentioned in the introduction, 1,000 times a second the sensor is recording its position and movement. Now, depending on the location of your device, which is either iOS or Android, both are currently supported, the information will either be stored here and then later synced when your device gets close enough, or synced immediately. I haven't done extensive tests as to the distance involved, but I can tell you that if your device is just outside of the court on a glass court, there will be live sync. If it's a walled court or if it's on the balcony, I suspect you might be able to sync it immediately, but I'm not really sure about that. Now, one thing I want to mention is currently, and this is important here, currently the World Squash Federation say that you cannot use the information that sensors like this provide during the matches. Okay, so you can't look at the data in between games and change your game based on that. However, for 99% of the people, I don't see that that's going to be a particular problem. I wonder how many of the actual rules that the WSF have regarding competitive matches are followed anyway. I mean, the timing and all sorts of stuff. So I wanted to mention it. That might change over time, but you won't be able, or you shouldn't be allowed to use this during matches, and that might not, as I said, 99% of people, that's not really going to make any difference to. One of the questions that I've been asked quite a lot already is it worth it? It's £130, and I want to make a comparison very quickly between a top of the range racket, which is about £130, and this. Because I think that a lot of people will be looking at that comparison. They'll be saying, okay, well, the season's about to start. I've had my equipment for a couple of years now. Maybe it's time for me to buy a new racket. Or they'll be thinking, shall I get one of these? So that's a thing that people will be doing. The first thing is that when you buy a new racket, you can immediately see a difference if you've bought the right racket. You'll get on court and you'll either feel that you're hitting the ball harder or that you've got a little bit more control. But those things are temporary, because if it was that simple, you could simply buy a new racket every month and at the end of the season you'd be number one in your club. It doesn't work that way. The new racket, yes, can be helpful for your game, but the amount of benefit is limited. What you're getting here is information. You are paying £130 for the information. Now, there's a phrase in English which is knowledge is power, and I disagree with that. I think it should be the use of knowledge is power. Knowing something and not doing anything about it doesn't really make any difference unless somebody else knows that you know it, but in that case, it's their use of that knowledge. What I'm suggesting is that when you buy this, you will be given information about your swing, information about your match play, and we'll talk about those things in a moment. But if you don't use that information, then that money would be wasted. Just the same as if you went to a coach and your coach advised you to do this or change this, but you didn't, well, that would be a waste of money. So, the question in your mind is, are you looking for a short-term easy gain, buy a new racket? Are you looking for something that will help you in the long term and make a deeper change and improvement to your game? Then seriously consider this. Now, as I just mentioned, this is about information, and Racketware's website does a great job of presenting the information in a useful way. There is still a long way to go. There are lots of changes that I think need to be made to the website and to the way the information is being presented, but that's just my opinion. Doesn't make it right. But I speak regularly with the inventor of this, Dr. Paul Meller, so I know that they are working hard to change and improve the way that information is being presented. Now, if you're interested in learning more about the development of this, you can click here and you can watch about a 25-minute interview I had with Dr. Paul Meller about its development and how useful it is and all those other things. As I've already said, this sensor can be attached to any single racket, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a live unattaching. Okay, now in the box that you get a brand new black caracal grip, a large piece of tape which is used to attach the the framework, the sensor itself, and that's pretty much it. So that's what you've got there. This is the piece of tape that it comes with, and it attaches very, very securely to this racket. Now, you might be asking the question, but what if I use multiple rackets? Well, Racketware is open to the idea of either supplying or selling more of these frames. But at the moment, to my knowledge, that's not happening, but it might happen in the future. So here we go. Take this off. Stick that there, and this is what you get. Okay, so this is the frame, and it attaches to here. So putting it on a racket is simply a case of putting that on. Sorry about that. Putting that on and then attaching the thicker tape, and you can just use any sort of electrical thick tape, and then putting your grip back on. Now, taking off the sensor is a mission. And that's good, because you don't want it coming off in a match, and I can't guarantee that it will never come off, and Racketware can't guarantee that it'll never come off, but I would be so surprised unless it's actually hit and something breaks inside, whether it would ever come off. So if you have a worry about it coming off in a match, when you hit the ball you think, oh, I hit the ball too hard, it's going to come off. No way. Now, it is possible to get it off, and I can't do it easily. I'm so scared about breaking my nails or my finger. Now, Paul did it in okay, there we go. Look, I'm becoming an expert now. So this is the actual sensor. It charges with a USB with the cable supplied, and the battery lasts a long time. So if you do get another frame, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but that's what I'm calling it. If you get another frame and you put it on different types of rackets, putting it on and putting it off, once you become better and better at it, you'll probably be able to do it really quickly. Now, I'm told that the sensor has more memory than you could ever imagine. So if you do leave your tablet or your phone in the locker, and you think, oh my God, if I play for a couple of times and I forgot to sync last time, don't worry, you're not going to have any problem. There's plenty of memory on here. Let's have a quick look about what information you get. Now, there are two modes that you can have. There are matches, where it will analyze the match that you're playing. Basically, based on the time between hitting the ball and the type of swing, it knows when you serve or when you return. It will know who won the last point. So it can keep score, which I think is actually quite trivial, but it is important because it will need to know where you make the mistakes. Now, Racketware do recommend that after a point has finished, don't hit another shot. And I think that a lot of people will find that difficult initially, because of course, somebody hits the tin, the ball bounces up, you're gonna go for your nick. But you shouldn't really be doing that with the sensor, because it could confuse the data. Now, the type of information that you will get will be, for example, you've made 5 backhand errors at the front of the court, but you've made 4 forehand winning volleys. Now that information is not priceless, but it is so useful, because otherwise you would either have to be aware of that happening in a match, and honestly, I'm not. I like to think that I'm more aware than most players because I'm a coach and I've got that mentality. But the reality is that in the heat of battle, very few people can remain objective about what's happening. So you either have to have a friend or a coach who's watching you, and they have to then tell you what's happening. This does it for you. Yes, as I mentioned, you can't use it during the match, and your coach or your friend will be able to tell you, but the information will still be there. It will be something that you can change, and I've said it before and I've said it again. I could take any level of player, and if we could change the tactics, they would see a big improvement overnight. Okay, maybe not an absolute complete beginner who struggles to hit the ball most of the time, and maybe not a professional, but everybody in between could play better squash just by changing the shots that they play. Not how they hit the ball, but where and when shot selection. This will be able to do that. The other mode that this has is the live practices. Now I'm calling that aspect swing analysis. Now what you do is you turn this feature on and you select from at the moment, a fairly limited drop down list of shots, forehand and backhand, length, drive, volley kill, drop shot, those kind of things. And you can select whether one of the shots is a feed, so it doesn't count that. So if you're doing forehand kills, for example, you hit 1 feed, 1 kill, 1 feed, 1 kill. It will only tell you about the kills, otherwise the information would be sort of 2 sets of information. And what you can do is you set that to the live practice, and you just go and hit the ball. You choose the shot, you go and hit the ball, and then you're presented with a graph. And the graph has a lot of information. And honestly, I don't want to talk about that information in this video because it is just an introduction. But hopefully there'll be a much longer video explaining all of that. And Racketware on their website, they explain all of the different data points. But what you're given is you're given a graph, and it shows you your shots in relation to a graph and a guideline graph of what that shot should look like. Now I want to give you a quick anecdote to tell you why this would be useful. On my channel you can find an interview with Tim Garner. Tim Garner used to be a professional squash player. Now he is heavily involved in the promotion of squash and events. And my series of interviews was called A Hit and a Chat, and we went on court and we hit the ball for about 20 or 30 minutes. We did different routines, just warmed up. Now my cameraman, my close friend Imran, who's also a club player, he said to me afterwards, he said, "Philip, you hit the ball really well, obviously, but the moment I started watching Tim play, I could see that his shots were grooved much more than yours." Now grooved in this context means they were exactly the same. There was no difference. Of course, when the ball bounces at different heights and different speeds, there's a small variation, but essentially if the ball were in the same position, Tim's shots were perfectly grooved. He was world number 14. Mine were not. I only ever played for Middlesex a couple of times. My level was just not as high as his was. So immediately a club player will see the difference between a professional and a fairly good amateur. This will be able to do that for you. It will be able to show you how grooved your shots are. The less variation in your graph, the more grooved your swing is. Now, whether it's the right swing, that's a different topic, and this won't tell you the perfect swing for you, but it will tell you, are you swinging consistently in the same way? And that is a really big thing. There are other modes, there are challenges and personal bests, and I want to talk about one of those very quickly. One of them is called Squash Rally Quality. Rally quality is the number of shots played per rally. This is a fantastic indication of how good you are. The higher that average number, the better you are. Now, I'm not going to say that £130 is worth it just for that piece of information, but it almost is. And I know that that's what seems like an outrageous claim, because if you could objectively measure every single rally and get an average, and you used that knowledge to then try to increase that, and that doesn't just mean hitting the ball to the back all the time. What it means is cutting out the stupid shots and only playing attacking shots when the situation is, the right situation. If you could improve your rally quality, shots per rally, you would make a big jump. And this is one of the things, this is one of the features that it shows you in the application, whether you are increasing your number or decreasing your number. Okay, so this is the home screen, and as you can see, you've got the live mode, which won't work because I'm not hitting the ball. You've got the challenges. Let's have a quick look at those. So what you can see here is you can see that this month I've spent 5 days out of 30 on court. Doesn't have any of this information because I just haven't been on court very long. It's got this racket quality. This is the shots per rally. This is really useful. And you can have previous, which is nothing, of course, and you can have current, so that was the last one. This button at the top is the sync button, which means that when you get your sensor quite close, you just press this button and it will sync. Let's go back. So practices here. These are some statistics related to some of the practices. So you can see here, this was the 27th of August. I was on court at like 10 to 9 in the morning. I spent 32 minutes, 461 shots. All right, so you can see that my forehand long length, I got an accuracy of 65% and a consistency of 76%. Consistency there, of course, is whether the swing is the same or not. And as you can see, I've got various different shots here. All right, so not a particularly good one on my backhand drop there. Okay, so I had 2 sets of backhand drops. Now, matches won't work. As it says, please do some matches to unlock this feature. Maybe you have played some matches, but you just haven't synced, so that's okay. Achievements. So here, it's sort of time on court. If you say, I want to get on court for a certain amount of time, want to use some energy. Practice sessions, rallies won, rallies lost. That's quite an interesting one because the number of rallies you win might not be related to whether you won the match or not. It might seem that you would, but if you won a game 11-3, but then you lost the next 11-9, and that happened for 5 games, then, you might be winning rallies, but you're not winning the right rallies. That can be useful. You've got personal bests. Again, got to do some matches. And there we go. Now, what I want to do is I want to switch over to some screenshots of the live practice. Okay, so this is an interesting one. Now, this is my backhand drop. And what you can see immediately is that my consistency was 87%, and I'm really quite happy about that. What you'll notice is that it's very different from the guideline. Now, this is one of the things that I'm in discussions with Racketware about presenting this in a meaningful way. It would be nice to see a video of that shot being played, so maybe I'm feeding myself in a different way. My understanding of a backhand drop is me being in the front backhand corner and just hitting drops to myself. I wasn't feeding myself. Maybe this is from a boast which is then dropped. So that's one of the things I'm talking about, presenting the information. What I am happy about is its consistency. Okay, so let's have a quick look at it in action. As you can see, it's like blank when you first start. This is me hitting shots. Obviously, I've speeded that up. You don't want to watch me hit that. And now you can see the results. So this is how you could actually use it on court. You could practice a technique. You could try something new, check to see if you're doing it correctly, go back to the beginning again. Now here, this is a forehand return. Again, it's a little different from the guidelines, and you know, that's something that needs to be addressed. Again, consistency is pretty good, accuracy is not so good. It's 20 shots, so I'm quite happy with that. Now I can't do that here because it's a screenshot, but what I could do is I could delete that information, I could reset it and just go ahead and do them again. So I've got that. And here is a forehand drive. Consistency is not so good here. Again, it's very different from the guide, but I'm less worried about that because I was just hitting, maybe I selected drive and these were shots off the back wall. So again, more explanation is needed from Racketware to completely be clear about what's happening. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not going to talk about all of these different points. Let me just bring them a bit closer and hope that you can see them. I'm not going to talk about these because that's for the detailed video. And there's one more. This is the forehand long length. Now it's a bit closer to the guideline, but still it's not as good. Consistency 76%. That's quite interesting. It's 76% on this one. So going back to my anecdote, my shots are quite grooved, but they're not as grooved as they could be. Racketware tell me that they are in discussions with professionals and other coaches about getting their swings recorded and averaged, so that perhaps in future you'll be able to select I'm a Shabana, for example, and just say I want to have a backhand like him, and then you can start to copy that. And I think that that would be a really cool feature. So this is just an introduction to some of the things that you get in the live mode. Of course, if you were to use this in a match, this information would be so weird because each shot is different. This is really to be used when you're hitting the ball alone or with a partner. You can see how I did this. This was a feed. So I hit one high, one return, one high, one return. So it's more to do with practicing on court, either in a set routine with a partner or on your own. Let's talk about who it's useful for. Racketware claim that it's useful for everybody, and honestly I'm a little bit dubious about that. And I'm dubious about it because there is so much information that it can be overwhelming at times. And as I mentioned, Racketware's challenge is to present the information in a meaningful way to different groups of people. So let's just talk about juniors and children. Is this useful? Well, I want to say before I do that, the match analysis is useful for literally everybody except absolute complete beginners who might not even be playing matches yet. I think that at that point it won't be useful because maybe you don't hit the right short shots because you can't control a racket. So ignoring the complete beginners or very, very early beginners, this will be useful for everybody for the match analysis. If we talk about swing analysis and we talk about children for a second, I'm not sure that that's something that I would be worrying about. Their coach or their parent could use the information to help them, but for them using it on their own, not yet. And I say not yet because maybe in the future there'll be a section a little bit like Netflix where you can choose your user, but you could choose like a children's section and it would present simplified information in a more useful or easier to understand way for children. If you're a high level junior, you're probably receiving coaching and you probably know what you're doing. In that case, maybe the information presented in the swing could be useful. Now, children are naturally competitive, and I see a huge possibility for using this to have sort of challenges between groups in different clubs and perhaps numbers of shots and all sorts of things. So there's a huge potential for children, but the specific match analysis at the moment, I'm not convinced. Now, improvers, people who have been playing a little bit longer, yeah, this could be useful, hopefully in conjunction with a coach. A coach would then be able to show them, look, you're just not preparing your racket high enough. I'm going to hit a few shots with your racket and I want you to look at the chart, and then you can see the chart. Now you go and do it and let's compare charts. And you've got like an objective way. We all think that, oh, I'm getting my racket up, but no, I'm dropping it, coach, I'm dropping it. Honestly, I'm doing my best here. Yes, you're doing your best, but you're not dropping it enough. Let me show you. and then you watch the coach, but then you see the graph and you can see the differences. So for an improver, yes, this will be really useful, but probably with somebody to guide them through that. Club players. Hopefully you've got a better understanding of what type of swing you should be doing in what type of situations, and you'll be able to look at the graph, probably with no help, and be able to say, okay, yeah, I can see what I'm doing wrong here. I can see that on this particular shot I'm preparing too late, or I'm not addressing the ball correctly. It gives you the information, but as I've said, and I will keep saying it, you need to use the information. Don't expect it just to tell you, keep your racket up or some silly thing like that. Although there is something like that in development that I can't talk about just yet. Club players will benefit from this because it will give them the information and they can use it. Advanced tournament players, 100%, absolutely. If you are serious about improving your game, the information that's presented in the swing analysis, the live practice, will be really useful for you. You will be able to groove your shots. You'll be able to make the small changes, because at that level, it's the small changes that make the difference. When you're a beginner, you have to make big changes. But the better you get, the smaller change is more important, because you've already got the basics right. So for club players, tournament players, this will be very useful if you take the time to use that information. So to summarize, and let me address one question that people have asked me: would I buy this now? No. Shock horror. No, I would not buy this now. Why? Because I don't play squash. I am an internet coach. I go on court maybe once a week to hit a ball, to test a racket, but I can't. I've got very bad hips. I'm waiting for a new hip. I'm not on court enough. If I were a little bit younger and if I were playing competitive squash, then yeah, I would. This would be one of the things that I would add to my equipment list, like a heart rate monitor and a Swiss ball and some resistance bands. This is a piece of equipment that will make a huge difference to my game. Would I prefer to have a cheaper racket than this? Absolutely. Now, you've probably seen my review of this racket. I love this racket. This racket's about £90. I'd rather have one of these than two top of the range rackets. So you can make that decision based on how much money you have available and whether you are the kind of person who really wants to work hard and improve their game. If you are a recreational player who plays once a week, there's still benefit, probably not from the live and the swing analysis or from the challenges or the personal bests, but probably from the match analysis. It will sort of help you. But again, you have to want to improve, and many recreational players, they're just happy to just play once a week. So that's that. Final thoughts. It is an incredibly useful piece of technology, and I'm sorry to say it again, but only if you use the information. If you are the kind of person who actively wants to improve, this could really make a difference to your game. I don't think there's anything else for me to say. I hope you enjoyed this review. I know you still might have lots of questions. I do hope to provide a much longer review in the near future or the medium future. I'm going to lend this to one of the best players in the region, and he is going to be able to use it for the match analysis, because that aspect I can't. And then I'm hopefully going to be talking more about the aspects of the swing that this shows you and the changes that you can make and those kind of things. I'm hoping to do that, but I'm not going to promise when or even if that will happen. So that's it. So as always, if you've got any questions about this particular device, leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. I know I haven't answered every single question, but as I said right at the beginning, this was an introduction. And visit their website, visit racketware.co.uk, because they answer a lot of questions that you might have already. And if you haven't, then ask me and I'll do my best to get them answered. If you think the content of my videos is useful, please consider subscribing to my channel and turn on notifications. This is a playlist of the technical aspects of squash, which probably interests you if you've watched this video. This is a video that YouTube thinks is a really good fit for you. Thanks for watching, and remember, do something every single day to improve your squash. See ya!